Hey guys, welcome back to the Mind Body broadcast with Austin and Marty. And this week we are going to talk about why training styles suck, or why having particular styles in general is usually not ideal if you're working with a client. At least from our perspective as coaches working with people, we want to get the message across that having a particular style that we use with everyone or that we prefer with most people is not necessarily the most lucrative way to go about things. Because I think, like we talked about before the show, really common questions we'll get oftentimes from new client inquiries is, do you like such and such training style? And it seems like a really simple question, because it is. I mean, it is a very broad question, but it's almost impossible to answer. Just because there's no context.
Absolutely. Or conversely, they'll ask, what is your training style, or how do you train your clients, right? Because if someone's married into a certain training modality, style, whatever you'd like to call it, they'll either really want that, or they won't even look into you if you're not doing that kind of style, right? And one of my answers I've kind of switched over the years has been to what works for you type of thing. And they'll kind of, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, and then on the questionnaire, when they first push it in there, I will get like, what have they done? And I've added that as well to my new client questionnaire is what training styles have you done? Which ones did work and which ones didn't work? And then which ones did you like? And that's probably the most powerful question that I've added in we'll say the last 2 to 3 years, if not more, is really putting an emphasis on what is that training style that you enjoy the most.
Right. Yep. I totally agree. It's and that's an overlooked variable there, is just adherence. Also adherence, and not even so much adherence, because I mean, I'm sure you have clients. I mean, and I have plenty of clients. They're diehard. They're dedicated. Even if they hate something, they're still going to do it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get the most out of it, just because you're not going to generate as much intensity in the gym and have as productive of workouts and as have better stress relief and all of those things when you dislike what you're doing. That seems kind of obvious, but again, ideal. I like using the word ideal or optimal. Isn't a black and white thing. Optimal depends on the person. We know that. But optimal depends on kind of the person's environment too. For example, I know I might have somebody that I know that if I do HIIT cardio with them and a certain amount of steady state or whatever, in combination with their calorie deficit, that is probably going to be the best thing I can do for their fat loss. But their schedule is so jam-packed that I can't, and I have to create more calorie deficit through their diet.
Yep.
Real simple example.
Yep.
While it might not be ideal, because I'd like them to be able to eat a little bit more and utilize that cardio as a different mechanism, it's just not practical, because that's probably going to mean either I'm cutting into their sleep time, or they're just super stressed trying to figure out how to get everything in. So yeah, I mean, optimal is complicated. It can be.
Oh yeah. I want to say that, like, outside of actual professional athletes, and when I say pros, I don't mean someone with a pro card. I mean someone that is paid to do the training, and that's it. They're at home. Their job is to go to the gym. Then it's I don't know very many that can do ideal and optimal together, right? Because, like, let's say it is ideal for you to wake up and do fasted cardio. Why fasted cardio? Because then you'll have more energy if you do the weight training at night. Not because fasted cardio is necessarily miraculous, but if you have, let's say, an hour of cardio and then you do an hour and a half of training, if you split them up, you're probably going to be able to jam on the gas more. A lot of people can't friggin' split that stuff up, thanks to life, thanks to kids, thanks to relationships, thanks to work. They just can't do that. So that's even going into if you're being forced to do that, like you said, if you can't do something, like, let's say the scheduling thing, and I'll just pick something like you said, the cardio period, and you had to take it away from food. But if a coach or if a training program says you must do fasted cardio on this, and you go, oh my God, I have to, and you just can't. You work until midnight and you have to have the kids out the door by 7 a.m. So now you're not even getting to bed till 1 a.m. And so you have to wake up for 6 to do cardio after 5 hours of sleep. That's the perfect one, what you just said. How is that optimal? Now that optimalism is not optimal anymore. It's gone beyond suboptimal, if not, what do you call it? Just like maximally terrible. I'll say maximally terrible, right? But and then when you look into the things that you just said about what you if you hate doing it and you don't want to do it, the two kind of classic things that have been popped up, especially in Gen Pop, as opposed to just, we'll say, bodybuilding or whatever, is that girls want to train their glutes and guys want to train their arms. And how long has that been now, right? 5, 10 more years? So even giving guys, let's say they have the time, wherever, it's not impairing in by any way, give the guys an arm day. Something like that, even if their arms get trained during back exercises. Yes, I know that, idiots. I know that. Of course I know that. I can, but you give them some curls and you give them some push downs and they feel the blood pump into because how many times have I heard, oh, I don't really feel a lot of exercise, but man, as soon as I do those push downs, oh man, and that makes them feel great, and they're not gonna run away from the gym anymore. They're gonna be entertained. They're gonna love it. And then of course, girls, I think I want to say 4 to 5 new client questionnaires. What are your top 3 goals? Number 1 will be big booty bitch, and just. Oh my God, Oz, if I reported them to you and they caps lock, I'm not kidding, last night said big booty bitch was number 1 goal. I was like, is that the personality? Is that the butt? Like, is that both? So yeah, but is that, do they need that? Would the girls need, like, we'll say the abduction and adduction machine? Would they need the bandit stuff? Whereas when they're just starting to learn how to do lunges and proper squat, probably not. But now they're, oh my God, I got this secret booty workout, and that's gonna make them go more. And I bet you they're gonna try harder on that booty workout than they do on their friggin' leg press. But that's going to make them enjoy it. And so, and that's one of the things that I'll go into here in a bit too, is kind of like the meet me halfway type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's say me and you are probably pretty damn, I know that I don't even need to guess that you are. I know that you're pretty damn good at assessing someone and seeing, okay, this person has done DC training, a bit of mountain dog training, and a bit of Weider high volume training. And they can say, hey, this is my results from ABC. And you go, okay, ooh, that one looked a little bit good. And then you can even make some kind of hybrid between that. Or if they really want to do, let's say, DC training, and you think that they'd really benefit from the higher rep stuff, you can meet them and say, hey, you know what, how about we do a little bit of half and a little bit of half? Can you meet me in the middle? And they go, okay. And then that will get them to do it more. So now your knowledge is being implemented in terms of the ideal with their love of training of a certain way. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
My man. Yeah.
And it's something completely off topic, but when you said meet me in the middle, the little comic relief here.
Okay.
All I could think of was the girl from I think it was Dr. Phil, the Catch Me Outside. How about that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why that popped in my head.
Meet me in the middle. How about that, right?
Yeah. That's that's ridiculous. Okay.
Don't worry. We're editing that part out. That's
no, we have to keep that in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, goodness.
But yeah, so like, if you experience that with like the training programs where, like you said, they're super, super married to one and maybe they've been doing it for years and then you think that they could try something different, or like, well, yeah, what do you think on that?
Well, I mean, if they're married to something that works, then, hey, that's a little bit different scenario, but
that's the dream. If they're doing something that works and they're coming to you and maybe just want nutrition or whatever, awesome.
Right. Yeah. But obviously that's, and even at that, the thing is, even if something works, and we know this, even if something worked for you in the past, I mean, it's not going to work for you necessarily forever. Mm-hmm. And that's not because something similar to that may work. We definitely learn things in terms of how somebody recovers, what their tendencies are, what their psychological tendencies are, and all those things. But even then, I know me personally, I have evolved in what has worked for me. Like what worked for me in the past doesn't necessarily work for me now, and that's going to be with everyone. And sure, that kind of depends on the time frame of the client. I mean, if we're working with someone for a year, then we're going to find out what works for them as quickly as possible. And that's probably going to be similar to what they do for most of that period. But, these long-term clients, I mean, they have clients at 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, hey, it's a constantly, we're constantly evolving, trying new things, figuring out what works. And you couldn't possibly try everything over your lifespan. I don't think that that's very realistic. And now, I mean, nowadays versus maybe even 5 years ago, I would say, or 8 years ago, we do have more research. We also have some research, showing us, giving us a baseline of things that we can probably throw out and things that we, probably work a little bit better.
Oh, for training, I would even cut that shorter. You said 5 to 8. I would say about 4 to 5. Like it's new stuff. Like with what Brad Schockenfeld has been putting out with rep ranges and things. Just like it's really damn cool stuff. It's kind of putting a lot of people to rest, but it's also creating more zealots in terms of 3 to 5 is what everyone needs to start with, or a 5x5 program, or a 3x5. Whereas it's becoming irrefutable now. I'm super happy you brought that up. Yeah, good.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was leading into.
Good, man.
Because I have an issue with that.
Mm-hmm. Me too, man. Go for it. Yep.
Anyone that has that actually coaches people from a practical standpoint and is not a researcher should have an issue with that. Really, we know that. Like I said, you said you need this much sets. We know that we have things like minimum effective volume and maximum recoverable volume,
right?
And we have things like, frequency, volume. We have, intensity, people using RPE scales, all those things. And I think that in general, all that stuff is fantastic. It's awesome that we have it. If you're a brand new trainee, then it would make sense to probably try the things that works for the largest amount of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But at the same time, it all goes back to the whole style thing. Not having a style is kind of the style of anyone that's a good adaptable coach.
Yep.
I think that I don't want to downplay anyone's training programs that do have set programs, because I do think that there are some good system. I'm not going to call them programs. I'm going to call them a training system, because
Sure.
I think a system is a little bit different than a program.
Mm-hmm.
A system would be something like Dr. Scott Stevenson's Fortitude training.
Right. Yep.
I would consider that. Yeah, exactly. I would consider that a system. It has things, built-in volume tiers. It has built-in deloading. It has built-in, different levels for depending on the person's recovery ability, experience, et cetera. So that's a system.
Mm-hmm.
But getting a 12-week program or a 16-week program from somebody, if you're paying somebody for training program, I'll go as far as to say this, and you're not a strength athlete,
mm-hmm.
because there are exceptions. I think the strength athlete's a little bit different in terms of how you design the blocks. But if you are a physique related athlete and you get handed a 12-week or 20-week or whatever, anything along those lines that says, hey, we're going to do this for X amount of time and then we're going to switch, that's a red flag to me.
Do you know how hard it is to convince people to not have that? Because and I'll write back to people, because I had an inquiry last night, and she gave her information in the morning. At the nighttime, said, "Hey, just wondering if everything's ready to go." And I said, and I've got almost a standardized response that I send back to people now. I say, this is not a prefabricated 12-week bikini boot camp. I say this is going to take me some time to go over what you've done, what you haven't done, what worked, what you didn't work, and so exactly, and to say, and then people will ask, like, hey, how much longer on this program? I'm like, well, is it working? And but that goes into how few people will look at biofeedback. I'll go slightly off topic and say I've seen people get their contest prep diets where the coach will say, okay, at 12 weeks, 8 weeks, and 4 weeks out, you get a cheat meal. I'm like, exactly. I'm like, how do you know what the body, especially let's say new competitor, let's say someone they never see, you're going to know what their body's going to need in turn 4 weeks. Okay, but that's exactly the point. Is that let's say that you give them the volume that's too much. Like to have anything be so carved in titanium, let alone rock. Rock's easier to friggin' do something out of than titanium. Like there's no way. There's like you said that. Like I've had, and then conversely, I've had programs that was supposed to last for myself for 12 weeks, and I've done them for 16 because they were working so well. Like or the programming, not necessarily the program, but you know what I mean, the alterations or whatever. Or like, yeah, it's and that's why the newer terms of like periodization and stuff like that, it's good. But like that just means there are periods of where, you know, either volume or intensity alteration, which even those, I don't know, I don't like having them set like that after 4 weeks of this or 4 weeks of this. Like, let's say you get, let's say a brand new trainee, just even an advanced trainee, and they've never done this system. Like if you've never had a guy venture outside of 6 to 10 reps and now he's into 15 plus, that's going to kick his ass. And so if he's not generating intensity by that third or fourth week, until that third or fourth week in that 15 plus, why would you stop that and go back down to a different rep range if he's just hitting the stride then? Keep that going. They feel good. The recovery's good. The biofeedback's good. If people don't have this model of which is biofeedback plus workout programming, plus workout exercises equals the programming, I think they got to rethink that shit for sure.
Yeah. And you can flip it. You can flip it on the other side and say, I think now there's also a lot of, I try not to make it sound like this is everyone doing these things, but there are people that change the programs too much because they think that it increases their value as a coach, or, you know, increases their value or makes them look more knowledgeable. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, sometimes this is an easy concept for clients that are a little more experienced. You know, hey, I don't change anything in the program because it's working. They totally get that. They would never expect me to change anything. I mean, why would you? But for somebody that's a little bit less experienced, if they see somebody, their friend is, you know, their programming is, you know, it looks prettier on paper and it's changing often, you know, AKA muscle confusion.
Oh man. Yeah.
You know, I hope that nobody's using that term, but you get what I'm saying is sometimes there's just too much changes. And I think that's equally as bad. I mean, obviously, because, you know, again, it is all biofeedback. Mm-hmm. Everything's biofeedback related. And like I said, there's some exceptions in the strength community. We talked about this a little bit. This is mainly a physique related podcast, but just to briefly touch on that, I do for a lot of the powerlifters I work with, and that's not a ton. I don't work with a lot of them, but I do work with some. Yeah, I mean, having a little more set blocks and the way things progress is because you are peaking for meet. Strength is,
that's right.
You know, strength is for the utmost importance. Obviously, there's still biofeedback component in there, but it is a little bit different.
Yep.
But again, physique community, there's never a set amount of time for anything, and I too get those same questions for when I, you know, working on clients' plans. Happens all the time. Hey, you have my. I don't even do this actually. When I send, and anyone that's worked with me, they might have noticed that when I send a initial programming and everything out, I actually won't even say, here's your program. I'll usually say something like, here's our base, or here's our starting point, or here's our initial setup. Like, I'm even so picky with my word choices because I don't like that standardized type of wording.
Yep. Yeah, I'll say that too. I'll usually say for nutrition, I'll say here's our baseline, and then for training, I'll say here's our starting point. That's exactly where it is, and then I say rate it and say based upon what we see in the assessments, this is subject to change, and that's just it, right? Because this is my best, very educated guess at what I think you need for your current goals or what you told me about, right? And so, and then again, that could go way into a conversation of did the client give accurate feedback in terms of they said they were this strong at this point. Go, oh, okay, cool. They've been training for 2 years. Okay, what does that mean? Versus like, right? So, and that's why it could change. You could either give them something too hard, or you could give them something too easy. It depends upon the modesty of the client, we'll say, right? But then you dip into the two topics that I like to, or sorry, two different types of terms that I like to say is there's workout boredom, or then there's workout ADHD, which those are both, they get the people after 3 weeks, and thank you Muscle Confusion, and thank you P90X that came out with that ridiculous idea that the bicep forgets how to bicep. So, and you see that, right? And that's what it is. And I say that to them, they go, yeah, but, and I'm like, well, then you get into the whole conversation of that everything works to a point. And it's usually the people that I have saying those kinds of things are the ones that were on their fitness journey. They started out with the fat loss, and then they got to wherever they were, and they associate whatever program they did. Like, let's say it was the Muscle Confusion. They associate that with the results and the success, right? So then like, well, I was doing something different every week or different too. And I kind of give the what do you call it, analogy of like school. Like, if you're always changing subjects, you're not going to learn a heck of a lot about something, let alone how do you even know if that's working? Because I have written down here while you were talking is how to do the adjustments. Like you said, that if you're working with someone with over years, then you're going to start getting really good pictures in terms of, like, let's say they do fortitude training. Let's just, because you brought it up, let's do it. So they do a good 12-ish weeks of fortitude training, and you notice in their photos you're in a good off season, whatever conditions are similar, but you notice that for this 3 months out of the 3 years that you've been training them, their shoulders just blew up. Oh, whoa. Okay. So now you as any good coach would, you make a whopping note saying fortitude training style for shoulders worked really great for Austin, and you underline that and you box that and you remember that, especially if their stubborns or stolers, right? If their shoulders are stubborn, you remember that, because and that's when you can do something that I've been calling like creating your ultimate program. Is that, but you can get help from a good coach, because you won't necessarily see that yourself. But if you know that leg press works better for you than hack squat, and then a coach tells you the opposite, like that's the hardest thing too, right? Because I think we just talked about that, how coaches can be, we'll say, romantic, married, arrogant towards, no, my style works, or whatever style that they have seemed to have, though, right? Like, I go way back to when I first hired John Meadows. It had to have been 7 years ago, maybe 8. And I said, John, the only exercises right now that I've been feeling in my chest are one arm pec deck. He goes, then those are in your program now. And that blew my mind that he was like, yeah, sure, no problems, put it at the beginning. So then you activate your chest. It's something you feel, let's do it. And no one did that before him, and I don't know many past that will work with the client as much as that, just because that's not only that, do I enjoy them, but I felt them. So it was just kind of everything that we're kind of saying there. And then for the workout boredom, that's another, you have to ask them, like, why are they bored of it too? Is it just they hate a Bulgarian split squat? And I'm like, yeah, me too. or they'll have the workout ADHD, where it is they just want to change, and that's that. And if anyone's listening that says, yeah, that's me, I want to change it up all the time. Yeah, and that's it. Those are the two terms: muscle confusion and change it up or switch it up. Like, I want to switch it up. Why? Well, I don't know. I want to do something new and something different. It's like, okay, but then those are almost always, outside of course, the people super physiologically enhanced that anything works, or they're brand new at super physiological doses, is that it'll work. And so, but then it won't work as good as something that's more set. But how do we know anything about what worked for that? When you have that workout ADHD, I was saying about how you can study classes, you're studying chemistry, then you're studying biology, then you're studying how to be a skateboarder, then you try to come back to one of those subjects that you only studied for a week or two. You're not going to remember a heck of a lot about it, or the rep ranges and all this other kind of fun stuff that worked or didn't. And then it's just, then you actually are confusing the muscles in a bad way, in the sense of they're going, what the heck is going on? Let's say 1 week they're tired, the next week they're not. Well, was that because of the previous week? Was that because of this week? Was that because, and then you just get this ball of mess of wax that's like half heated wax, half rubber bands is tied into the wax, and you've got no idea what's going on.
Yep, I wrote a couple things down. I'm doing what you do now.
Good.
I'm forgetting because I have too many damn ideas. But one of the things to add to that, or to just kind of expand on that, is while it's good to maybe not have a style per se, you do at least have to do things long enough to know if it's working. You know what I mean? So that's not to say that, hey, unless something's just awful a week into the program, I mean, I just feel like crap, or this is way too much volume, or I cannot recover at all, then okay, I get that. We'll ease into it, we'll work around it. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, I mean, you at least have to have sufficient time on something to even know if it's working, rather than just changing things up. And that's, essentially what you already said. And then the other was, I mentioned the strength athletes and kind of having a little more standardized training blocks and things of that nature. But I will say that if there is one instance with physique athletes that I might be a little bit more standardized. And I'm not saying completely like, here's your 12-week program. But if I have a beginner that is really bad at providing biofeedback, then I'm going to be a little bit more standardized. And the reason being is because the only way that you can really run a program or coach from biofeedback and from just the, feedback in general from the client is if the client is good at giving you the feedback in the first place.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So with a beginner, that's someone that's really new. I'm actually, that's one of the things that I try to kind of teach people along the way is I have clients that they're brand new. Maybe we're 8 months in, a year in. And by that time, they're actually really good at giving feedback. They know what information I need. They can provide it to me. They're much more efficient in their updates. They know what they're actually supposed to be looking for in their workouts and the way that they feel. And then our training really starts to evolve. Whereas I might have had to have them run the same 12 or 16 or 20 weeks of training in the first place to even get them to learn all those biofeedback cues.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Because there is. It's almost like if you are a beginner, just think of it like school. We can't put you, even if you are a prodigy, we can't put you in grade 6 until we find that out. So we put you in primary kindergarten, and we put you in grade 1, go, holy crap, okay, then maybe we can skip you to grade 3. Okay, grade 3 is still too easy, let's go to grade 6. And okay, but to have, especially if they are a straight up ranked beginner, never been in the gym, to bombard them with something that we'll say is advanced. No, you're right. If you put them on a beginner program and it's working super, super well, don't change it. And especially if they're enjoying, like if everything lines up for sure. And then you said you get the actual biofeedback, and then you'll be able to see the physical feedback as well, in terms of like if the shoulders are growing or not, if the arms aren't growing, if the glutes are responding, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll finally be able to get proprioceptive awareness. And then they'll go, oh, okay, I can't feel my X activating on this exercise, but I can feel my X activating on this one. You go, okay, and then you make a note, and ta-da. So if that starts to evolve into the programming, well, then that's perfect. And then you can see if they're what their style is. Let's say they really enjoy hanging out in the 10 to 12 rep range or whatever, or then they really like doing the strength stuff, or that, okay, cool, then you can kind of adapt it to that too. But just because you have, and this is going to be the worst case scenario, because you found, you at the very beginning said the best case scenario, I don't know if it was pre-talk or not, but that would be if you have a program that really, really works for you and you really, really enjoy it. Like that's, high enjoyment, high motivation, high results, everything like that. But then there's others, which I've done this many times, is that the person / me has really enjoyed the idea behind the program, and they think, oh man, like this is it. Like they get pumped up about it and they go do it and it just wrecks them. It's not for them. Injury prone, no results, recovery's there, but you love the idea of the program, or you love, it's just like, I'm so terrible at race car video games, but I keep trying to play them and I'm so terrible no matter what I do with them. But that's it, right? That's just not my game. So then that is, and I wrote down trying to put a square into a triangle hole. Like you just can't do it. And so that does suck. And that is the worst case scenario, is if it's like having a very, very weak power lifter or a long limbed power lifter. So you know what I mean? That sucks. So to keep doing that, and then we'll say almost breaking yourself is just gonna be one of the, I'm not going to say career ending, but then even though, let's say the science says you should be doing this, and you go and you do that, and it doesn't pan out that way, that's like you said, the lab coats that will never have worked out, versus people that will only be in the gym and know what works for them. Those are probably the two people to not listen to ever, are the ones that are at the extremes, because they've only have that one narrow-minded view. I'm not saying that you need to have the scientific backup knowledge to do the weight training correctly, and I'm also not saying that you have to have been in the gym for 30 years and been a Mr. Olympia to have your lab coat stuff be effective, but I am saying to ignore either end of the spectrum entirely, you're shortchanging your own progress a hell of a lot.
Oh yeah, and I'm not sure if we mentioned this already, but this is that's a big issue right now.
Mm-hmm. You're damn right it is,
because of all the research.
Yep.
The research is awesome, but at the same time, it's creating this. I don't even know what you want to call it. It's creating this resistance towards experience.
Yep.
Yep. And which seems silly, but if you look around in the industry, you have two extremes. You have some really knowledgeable and good people that fall in the middle, and then you have just the people that fall on one end or the other. Mm-hmm. As in, the research says this is the minimum effective volume, this is the maximum recoverable volume, this is what you should do, this is how much frequency you should do, this is how much intensity you should use, and so on and so forth. And the same thing could be said about nutrition as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, how much research do we have on protein intake right now?
Oh,
it's incredible. Like, and I don't get me like, I've actually done some experimenting with different stuff, because now we went from, it's pretty funny though, because if you think about it, we went from initially with a lot of the initial research, here's how much protein we need to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. Here's how much protein can we digest in a single sitting. Anything over that is
a
waste.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have protein overfeeding studies coming out.
Yep.
About extreme protein intakes. Intakes that are well and above anything that we've seen as necessary in the past. And guess what? Mm-hmm. There was actually some benefits in the studies and some positives. And so now people are like, oh, yeah. So now my 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein that I needed for minimum, whatever the minimum was. Mm-hmm. Now I'm actually going to use 4 grams per kilogram because this protein overfeeding study. I'm like, oh gosh, like my head's going to fall off.
Oh yes. I remember I think it was at a seminar, it'd be 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago this February, where Alan Aragon was there, and he said, because he likes to do those experiments, because he was talking about carbohydrate refeeds and da-da-da, and he goes, you know what? Here, and he put up a before and after, and it was something nutty, like 8 weeks, natural client. He said, what we did was protein refeeds. And he did exactly, I think it was like three in between 3 and 4 grams per pound or something like that, obnoxious. And he said, yeah, it was hard to stuff that much protein into them, but the results were bananas. And I was like, and that because I didn't even think of that, because like no one's brain has really gone there yet. But that, like, being a researcher, that's where his brain was taking him, and then now, exactly like you said, there is some people are starting to do those studies, and not just the n=1 case studies. But when Alan said that, I was like, I bet you that would work, because you think about how it can turn into glucose if you need it, and da da da. I was like, that. Wow, like I was starting because it's challenging everything, right? But but again, to be married to this modality of that, you need this, or you can't go above this, or that this is the only thing that works. Well, then how the hell does intermittent fasting work? How the hell does Scott Abel's approach, which was very sub-minimal protein compared to what it was, but that was because he was using enough fats and enough carbohydrates to make them protein sparing, and da-da-da. But and that's that when you only have that one piece of the puzzle, you are going to see only that piece. If you have a painting, and it's a painting of a boat, a lighthouse, and the moon, if you don't have any of the pieces that show the moon, you aren't going to be able to comment on it. So you need to wait, or not say that the whole picture is just the lighthouse and the boat, if that makes sense. But so many people won't. They will make they'll only see the lighthouse. They won't even see the boat in the moon, and say, nope, you have to have this much protein, da da da. But they're not catching that the other two things in the picture are like the carbohydrates and the fats, and go, oh well, if this is not there, then you can't see the whole picture. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah,
you're right.
That's it, man. Yep.
And it's and the thing with research too, not to get too far away from the whole style topic.
That's right.
But the thing with research too is research, especially in this industry, is basically just researching ideas that we want to confirm because we've already done them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For the most part, if you're looking at Gen Pop, people that don't know anything about, it's funny because if you look at some of the like more advanced research, it's actually done by somebody in or around this bodybuilding community. A lot of, like, if you go on a basic science site, if you go on like there's all kinds of sites. I'm sure you guys have some Canadian versions too. We have some different like US based sites, but like the topics and stuff and these aren't even old studies. These are new studies. I'm like, why in the hell are they paying to research this? I'm like, we know this,
right?
This is ridiculous. And, and there's plenty of information and science out there that you could pretty much connect the dots without needing a study.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah. So in general, as far as the research goes, 9 times out of 10, a lot of the stuff that is being researched are things that we've already tried. We maybe want to know the mechanisms of why they work or why they don't work, or know the, just the ins and outs of how far can we push it to one end of the spectrum or another. What's optimal from a biological standpoint. We can have tests and lab work and all that good stuff to see it. But in general, yeah, it's an interesting kind of time that we're in right now with the research, and the research kind of leads into the research stuff ties right into the whole topic of styles. Really, it does, because anyone that develops a style, whether it's a training program or a nutrition style, they're developing it either because they think it's the best thing, or anymore they're developing a lot of the better training systems. They're developing it because it's research based. They know. And why do they do that? Well, they do that because they know that, hey, this is probably going to work for the largest amount of people. But beyond that, if you're paying for, like I said earlier, if you're paying for actual individualized coaching, then that kind of is thrown out the window. We're still going to go by some of those rules and stuff if we have someone that is new and we've never worked with them and they've never had a coach. But, anyone that's been around for a while has some good feedback for us as coaches. We're probably not going to just jump right to the research to set up the programs. No,
and that I've done that, I think, 10 years ago. So maybe even more. I went so heavily researched, and that's what's even what they're calling they're themselves now the coaches in kind of that realm is the evidence-based or the research-based coaches or whatever, right? And that's cool because that was at least at some point a little bit sexier sounding, that okay, they're based off of evidence, based off of science, and it's not that, like, I know for a fact that you aren't completely anecdotal at all. You are, we'll say, evidence-based, but to promote that is just a little bit hokey in my opinion. But they just like, especially there's a brand new put out by Brad Schockenfeld that said it was one of the coolest pictures. It had like a picture of a bicep flexing, and it said I think 5 to 8, 8 to 12 reps, and the 15 plus reps. And he said, he goes, here is the brand new research about what the difference is, and it said absolutely nothing in terms of muscle hypertrophy. And I said, yep, and I've known that for so long. But you try to say that to someone at the outside of that 8 to 12 and say, nope, it's got to be 5 to this, and okay, or it's got to be 15 plus. And one of the cooler dots that I would start to connecting was the reason why that is, and I kind of morph that 8 to 12 into the 8 to 15, especially for men. Why 8 to 15 is kind of that sweet spot is that most men do not want to do more than 15 reps just because they don't got the gas to do it. They will get to that 13 or whatever, and then they're done, and they don't want to put an average guy that's competed a couple times, whatever, and you put him on leg press and you say, I want 25 reps, and you don't make it obscenely light, that's going to kill him. And he's going to be huffing and puffing and everything, and oh, that's just a cardio workout. Is it really? You tell me where you feel that. Do you feel that in your legs? because that was one of the things that I listened to Scott Abel's podcast years ago, and even read in his books, is that he does so much of his stuff in the legs from the 15 plus rep range, and it works. It works. I don't know what it is about the legs, but the same thing was that the research they were doing on that was girls at the time. Girls were doing 15 to 25 for everything on their legs, and because the girls thought that, like, that was so in their head that that's how you lose fat from the legs, was training your legs really friggin' hard all the time, and before you know it, their legs got bigger, they got more shapely, and they're like, what the hell's going on? And so, but that was it, is that if you, and that's the prove the original point that I was trying to make, is that if you really enjoy that style of training like the girls did, it's gonna work and you're gonna do it. And that's gonna, let's even say that 12 to 15 was better, I'm using air quotes, you can't see it, better for you. But it doesn't matter because you're not going to train as hard as you do in that 15 plus rep range. But anytime that I've kind of gone to that place inside my mind where I can train at that 15 plus, I felt better in terms of my joints. I felt better in terms of like where the muscle actually gets pumped up. And that's my individual assessment of myself, is especially with all the stuff I've had going on lately with my back, is that I can't do, like, we'll say, a really true intense set of even 8 or less, because my clavicles will fall apart thanks to my subluxation. I just can't do it. So I need lighter loads just to be able to generate the intensity. But that is it. Outside of, yes, blah, 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 beginner, progressive resistance, all this kind of fun stuff. But if we could convince people, Austin, to be more open with their training tactics, with their training, not even, like you said, programming, like, as opposed to just thinking that rest pause is the only answer, or superset is only the answer, or muscle rounds are only the answer. It's like, not only try them out and see how it works, but you have to enjoy it, and then have to just stick with it. Like, there's so many things that, like, I almost want to get a checklist and put this in the comments for this, of like, here's how to, kind of do your own dichotomy, where it's like a game of Plinko, where it goes dunk, 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 dunk until the bottom. Go, oh, is this okay? Let's do that. And so that you can kind of figure it out from there. But to really be so narrow minded where you ignore these 5 or 6 factors, saying, I don't care if I enjoy it, I don't care if it's only for 8 weeks, I don't care for this. Nope, this is what's doing it for me. And without looking at not only any evidence in terms of science, but not looking at your results. Those are the most fun people, are the ones that say, I know what works for me, and then you see them a year later, and they still know what works for them, but they look the same, in a sense, right?
Yeah, you have, I mean, and you can't help everyone. We'll just, we'll add that note in there. There's going to be plenty of people that I like to think that I can help everyone, but I know that that's not true.
Yeah, so, I know. Yeah, you get rid of that in the first little bit of coaching. You're like, I can save the world, and you're like, oh man, I don't, like, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. But on that note, I don't have a ton to add to this, but I had like a small closing,
Yeah, go for it.
like a small closing thing because I actually kind of light bulb went off here. I posted this on Facebook, so I just went in and typed it up or typed in my activity log real quick, see if I could find it, and ties right into this. I actually said, um, I don't have a style. I often get asked by new inquiries what my style is for dieting or training. I can never come up with a good answer to these questions other than whatever works. And sometimes it makes me feel like I don't really know what I'm doing.
Oh, I know. Well, no, not only does it makes me feel the same way, but then I'm like, oh my gosh, what are the potential clients or people reading that to go, whatever works? They're like, does he not know
Yeah.
what the real good working style is? And so I get it, man. I have to try to reword that as much as I can. I'll say I interpret everything from you guys and make what works for you. And trying to hammer that home is sometimes easy and sometimes really hard. Trying to say to people that what you think is going to be the best might not be it. It might be, and that's great. And if it is, if you think that doing nothing but supersets and circuits are going to work, and we find out that's what it is, that's the actual dream. That's perfect. But
Yeah.
to be closed off or to be too open or anything like that, or like just especially buying into or you're always changing up your workout thanks to the new science. Like you said, oh, well, this one study said that 12 reps was the magic. So now you switch everything to 12, even though everything else was working. That's just going into, we'll call it the millennial attitude, right? Which is just, if I'm doing something that works and there's a potential chance for something to work 2%, 1% better, they're going to do it. And why wouldn't you, in a sense, right? But to throw the baby with the bathwater, which is what you see way too much of, right, in terms of either what used to work and then this. Like, I remember, I was mentioning to you that I saw like someone say like how training systems works. It's like it will go from, you start out like as a male young bodybuilder, you'll start out as doing the strength lifts, and then you'll go into doing the weird stuff, which is just muscle confusion and all that, and then you'll go into some kind of like doing nothing but intensity techniques such as drop sets, strip sets, supersets, and then you'll come all the way back to keep it simple, stupid. Which you will find what works for you. You will find, okay, this exercise worked. This feels good. This rep range feels good. My joints aren't killing me. My recovery feels good. This and this. And it's kind of what we alluded to earlier about your ultimate program in a sense, right? And then if you do want to, this is definitely some great advice I wish that I gave myself 15 years ago, is that if you do want to implement something in there, implement that one thing. Don't like I said, baby with the bathwater. Don't throw it all out. Just put in like, let's say a Widowmaker set at the end of 20 reps or something funny like that. Just start doing something ever so slightly different. But especially if things aren't working, that's when you're definitely going to go back to the drawing board and kind of see, again, biofeedback. But man, there are people a little bit off, including my own self. Like, that's why I like hiring coaches here and there too, to help interpret my own biofeedback. But man, are people ever off in terms of they'll look at the I don't know, what would you call it, physical feedback, in terms of they'll look at the scale and the mirror only, and they'll completely ignore how they feel in terms of sleep, emotions, energy. They'll completely ignore that stuff and just go off of physical feedback. So that's one of the things that I like. As soon as I found out about biofeedback, I couldn't stop going further into that. If anything, I added more questions for it, just so that I can gain kind of the bigger picture there. Because before, I would think that, okay, if they're just tired, maybe it's just the food. When no, maybe it is overtraining, maybe it is the stress of the work, and then holy crap, you get this big picture where it wasn't even what you thought it was in the beginning, and that's even more true than the obvious. Which that's, I know I'm going stupid off topic here, but the Occam's razor thing, in terms of the simplest answer is usually the one that's you need to, right? Or but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not at all, in terms of if someone's only sleeping for 5 hours and you don't ask that on their assessments, and like they're hammering this and they're hammering that, and you're just assuming for whatever reason that they have a great 8 hours of sleep every night. Well, that's going to dip into everything. And so then that program, that's like, say you have a 5-day-a-week program. Like I've got my guys that work in the oil field and girls that work in the oil field, and then they actually have 2 different sets of programs, because when they're up north in northern Alberta working, they work 12 to 16-hour days. I've got to give them a 3-day-a-week program. Oh, but 3 days a week isn't optimal. Yeah, well, you try working for 16 hours out hauling pipe and stuff, and then go work out, and then go try to sleep, and then go try to eat. And you tell me how your recovery is doing that for 2 weeks straight. No days off.
Yeah.
But now you come back home. Okay, cool. You are sleeping a little bit more. I'll give them the first 3 days, kind of almost like a mini refeed, and then we can plow through some workouts, because now they're technically a pro, because they'll have 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So that's some of the stuff that takes a little bit more fine tuning or whatever. But then you will get the better results, as opposed to trying to keep them at a 5 or 6 day a week workout. When they're at work, they're going to be destroyed, and by the time they get home, they're barely going to recover by the time they get going back to work again. I think that's it for me, man. But you go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually have a client that is a Canadian client, and she has a very similar schedule. She's 10 days on, 10 days off.
See, there you go. Yep.
Yeah. And she literally, she barely does anything while she's there, and then does a lot while she's not, more or less.
Well, that's my point, is that sometimes when they go into these camps or wherever the town is, there's no gym either. So that's even like, let alone what is the food? Is a camp where they serve good food? Do they serve pretty much macaroni with whatever sauce every night? Because that's the stuff you got to know, right?
Yeah. And the second part, there was one little thing actually on the end of that quote that I missed, and it was, or the end of that passage was, I've probably lost business because I cannot answer these simple questions, but most of us would agree there are probably certain things that do work better than others, but to have a set style is to be closed-minded. So then, which is basically what we said, and I think that sums it up.
Yep. No, that's it. Is that, yeah. So why did training? So there to answer the question in kind of one line is, why do training styles suck? Because they're trying to put everybody from in a square into a circle hole. Is that it's not always going to work for everybody, and that's kind of the whole point. And I really like that you said that training systems, right? So why do training styles suck? Is because training systems are better, or something like that, right? Or yeah,
sure.
But that's it. Yeah, you got it. Because it is this. A style is just that. It's something that worked for someone, and it might not work for you. And if it does work for you, that's fantastic. But just, keep your mind open, pay attention to your biofeedback, and if things really start slowing down, enlist a coach. Get someone that does know more about how to, because let's say that for the last couple weeks before a show, any good athlete will hire at least a second set of eyes to take a look, because you won't see everything. It's like when you lose your keys, ask your friend to come over and help you look, because you're not going to know every area. You're going to look probably where you think you lose your keys, and they might look in the fridge and they go, "Oh, you put them in the fridge this time." And that's a really damn good analogy, because that's probably what it is. You get a detective to come over with you, which would be like you hiring a coach, and say, "Oh, by the way, you're probably not doing this," or they look at the training videos of you doing curls. This is the last thing I'm going to say, is that when I first saw my video of me doing a deadlift, I said, I look like that from the side. I had no idea, right? Because I'm too busy trying to activate this. And as I watched it, I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that I do it, because sometimes you can't feel that stuff. So there's the second set of eyes / the biofeedback. That's where how to rotate your training style or training programming. You can use definitely someone more qualified than you, or someone just as qualified as you, to kind of help you out. But yeah, that's how to keep it going. Don't change things too quick. Don't change things. Don't leave things too long. It's all in. Above all, I will say that this is it. This is finally it. This is it. I promise. Is enjoy your damn workouts. That's it. Don't ever start saying inside your head, I have to go to the gym. I get it during prep, whatever. But you have to enjoy this. Like, what's the point? You're going to hurt yourself and say, I hate doing this, and you're going to want to do that for your life. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree. I have nothing to add, sir.
My man, that's it. Well, from Marty and Austin at the Mind Body Broadcast, we will see you next time.